Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on the Maroon Friday edition of the Yard. Hope you're wearing maroon today. No baseball game today, as you guys are well aware by now. We've had a tremendous amount of rain in the greater Starkville area that continued to rain even through what first pitch would have been. The decision was made last night to go ahead and push to a Saturday doubleheader. First pitch is at noon. The second game will begin 40 minutes after the first game concludes. So a couple things you need to know. Friday and Saturday tickets will be honored for both games. However, Saturday tickets take seating priority. So if you bought a chair back from Friday from somebody and then somebody else has a Saturday chair back ticket, you're going to be general admission. Also, parking passes will only be honored for Saturday only. So you make sure you've got a parking pass for Saturday. If you show up with the Friday parking pass, it will not be accepted. Everybody has to kind of, adjust on the fly here. But doubleheader tomorrow. We're going to recap our ball game from last night. Talk about a tough night in Auburn for the ladies, preview a Saturday for the men, and that'll be going on while we're playing baseball, so we'll do our best to keep up with that. Our Justin Frommer will be there providing in-depth and in-person coverage as we get ready to hopefully take a game from Auburn. But, if you hadn't done so, let me encourage you, download the True Rest app. Or you can call 662-268-7601 to book your appointment. My lovely bride will answer the phone. Had several Boneyard listeners that have come in and floated with us, and it's been great. I want to share with you real quickly a review. I tweeted it out earlier. I don't know if you've seen it, but we're going to go over it either way. Just because I want you guys to understand, you don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to give you a recent review that is pretty consistent with the other reviews that we're getting. Selling a ton of memberships. That's a benefit that's available to you. And we've got some grand opening specials and things like that. Your first float, just $65. And how often do you take an hour for yourself? Pretty rarely. But here is a review from Carolyn Wilson McKenzie, who floated just yesterday. I floated yesterday. It was beyond amazing. When I walked in, I was met by Dana. She is friendly, calming, and so compassionate. After spending time with her, I consider myself more of her friend than a new client. Although I see a counselor for anxiety, depression, etc., I think Dana is my, quote, bonus counselor. Other than Dana, my first impression was that no expenses were spared to provide a first-class spa experience. That's true. I've got the receipts. You must see this for yourself. When I entered the pod and lied down, I said, wow, I carried my stress in my shoulders and neck. But within 5 minutes, I was totally relaxed. Time disappeared. I can only describe the experience as floating on air. When after an hour, I heard it's time to exit the pod, my response was, do I have to? I've had arthritis for about half of my 70 years. I taught high school students, and he continues to go there. But the reality of it is this. If you're a person that's dealing with anxiety, depression, stress, and we all are in some respect, or some chronic pain, maybe you've got some old sports injuries, maybe you've had some surgical procedures, maybe you just need some physical and mental relief, we can help you with that at True Rest Starkville. Come by and check us out. We're in the University Crossing Shopping Center. That's the same shopping center as Starbucks right next door to Little Caesars. And we're awfully proud of the place and so incredibly pleased with the start we're off to. Just been open a couple of weeks here. And already got a ton of new members, and it's been great. So thanks so much for your support. I know some people are like, you know what, Steve, I've never done this. I can float in my bathtub. No, you can't. I can float in my swimming pool. No, you can't. No, you can't. Not without some effort. You're going to effortlessly float here because there's 1,200 pounds of magnesium-infused Epsom salt that ensures that happens. So, again, download the True Rest app or dial 662-268-7601. We'll get you taken care of. I think we got 16 floaters today. I think that's right. And so if you're in town this weekend, maybe come float with us before you leave town. Or if you're a Golden Triangle regular, we got people coming as far as away as Oxford and Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, places like that. People just want to experience this because we are a people in pain, mentally or physically. You may get a little bit of a relief from that. So again, we encourage you to come be a part of that. So again, thank you. I want to also remind you guys, too, that basketball season's winding down, and we discussed kind of parking priority. There's really only one more conflict that's coming up here pretty soon. Basketball parking takes priority, so plan ahead. Like if you're a single game participant, I guess if you don't get to come to a game very often, understand that's how those things work. Had a chance to sit down and speak to Jeff Levy earlier this week, too. I can tell you there's a lot of excitement around Bulldog football as we get ready to open spring practice here in just about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks. We'll have full coverage for you over at genespage.com. You can become an annual member right now for 30% off the annual subscription rate. Excited to see this group on the field. We've got nearly, half the roster is nearly new players. You got a ton of guys already there. 32 new players enrolled for the spring semester. Let that sink in for a second. I remember when it was a big deal that we got a handful. It's like, oh, great, this early enrollment thing is brand new. I hope we can benefit. We got a few guys in. I remember that. If I remember correctly, that first group was like Fletcher Cox and Chad Bumpus and Cam Lawrence and a couple of others. But we didn't have a ton. We got a ton of early enrollment guys, either through transfer, through the junior college ranks, and even through the high school ranks. And Stonka Burnside, even one of those guys too. That's a chore in and of itself. Very excited for him and his family. Shows the hard work he put in to come be a part of spring practice. And I think these guys, that high school guys that go through spring practice, have a running start into potentially playing some this year. Now, if they're not ready, we redshirt them, right? They can still play 4 games. What a great rule that was. The NCAA hadn't always done a lot of good things. That's one of them, right? And I don't know if you've kept up with this at all, but this case against Tennessee, this NIL deal, has now been paused. And our Ross Dellinger, Mississippi State alum Ross Dellinger, very, 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 very in tune with what's going on. And when I need national news about college football, Ross is where I turn, because Ross is incredibly well sourced when it comes to this sort of stuff. We may beat him on some coaching search stuff on occasion, but he is very, very, very well connected when it comes to Southeastern Conference football and really everything kind of going on with the NCAA. And shared some things today. There are still some things in place. A lot of people think, well, anything goes now with NIL. That's not necessarily true. What's interesting that I took away from Ross's take is that the quid pro quo requirement for NIL remains in place. Well, you guys may recall a couple years ago we did an NIL deal with Kellum Clark to help promote Dogpile. So he did a short video for us. We paid him. And so he got something, we got something. So there was value in both sides. What we've had here for several months now is basically players getting money without doing anything for them in return. So that's something that I think will be interesting to see. How is that legislated? How is that enforced? Because you got a lot of collectives out there that, kind of working hard to do what they need to do within the framework of the NCAA bylaws. And then Charlie Baker comes out today and says, hey, the quid pro quo requirement remains in place. I don't know that it's in place. It's kind of my point. But it is very interesting that the court system has basically said the NCAA cannot enforce some of its own rules. And it's a private institution that exists publicly. And so it's a little interesting to see. And I'm not an attorney. I just kind of play one on the internet from time to time. You know my joke there. But the reality of it is this is an evolving and changing world. And I would encourage you to keep up with Ross. Again, he seems to get his hands on some emails and memorandums, I think, sometimes that aren't intended for him. That's good journalism there. So again, thumbs up to Ross. That's my go-to source when I need this information. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, too, longtime sponsors of the show. Man, I love Bulldog Burger Company. You should, too, if you don't already. You may already have an incredible love affair with Bulldog Burger Company. It's just one of those things you only have to go once to kind of understand I need to go back, right? There's so many places out there kind of competing for your dining dollar, and they don't always give you what you pay for. Matter of fact, sometimes they give you less than what you pay for because they tack on some convenience fee or something like that. And I think it's really more about it's there for their convenience, not for me. But there is integrity in pricing at Bulldog Burger Company. There's also a great meal in your future. When you sit down and put your feet under their table, they're going to take care of you. They are. They know exactly what to do when it comes to feeding folks. 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, the Lake Harbor Drive location in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Have the spring rolls as your appetizer. And guys, try that Mississippi barbecue burger. I think it will probably change your life. And maybe if it's not that dramatic of a change, maybe it'll change your mood. It'll certainly get you nourished. It'll certainly get you full. It's one of the things I love about going there is the portions there are so substantial. I feel like I'm kind of getting over, you know what I'm saying? And maybe you don't feel like a burger today, but the kids do. Have that BLT salad. I like it grilled. You may prefer it fried. No matter how you get it, I probably would recommend dousing it with ranch dressing. It's true. What's life without a little whimsy? Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. Okay, we're going to open with a baseball win here. Mississippi State has won its 3rd straight game, now 6-4 overall. Mount St. Mary's drops to 1-7. Interesting comments too that I'm not going to get on my soapbox too much today, but that understood. It feels like there's some people that are rooting against us. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. And maybe that's not the intention, but that's how some of the commentary comes out. It's like we win a game and we can't be happy that we won because it doesn't fit the direction that we feel like things should go. I think that's a terrible place to be in. But you find yourself rooting against your team so you can be right on the internet. And the Facebook groups are filled with these people. Filled with them. It's like, I don't want to watch the game. I'm not going to go to the game, but I'm going to comment on the game, and I'm going to tell you this. And it's so amazing how often these people are wrong about stuff. It's pretty crazy. It is. I'm going to cheer for Mississippi State in every sporting event, and I'm going to support every coach as long as they're our coach. Maybe you see it differently. That's how I feel. I'm just going to lay it out for you. That's how I feel. I want Mississippi State to win. I think the best thing for us is for Chris Lamonis and the staff to have a great year. I think that's what's best for Mississippi State baseball. And some would say, Steve, you fail to see the bigger picture. Maybe it's better if we make a coaching change and get somebody in that can win with greater regularity. You don't win the NAFL championship by accident. You don't. And I continue to see this false narrative out there is that the roster was filled with Andy Canizaro's players. That wasn't true. John Cohen, Andy Canizaro, and Chris Lamonis all contributed to that roster. I've broken it down several times for you guys. But any time that Mississippi State takes the court, takes the field, takes the diamond, stands in the softball circle, anytime that happens, I'm going to pull for Mississippi State. I'm a Mississippi State guy. That's who I am. I don't really make any claims otherwise. I want Mississippi State to win. I don't need to be right on the internet, though I make my living on the internet, right? I don't need to go out there and have the hot take. And I remember, around this time last year, I had some people, you're like, hey, I'm hearing this and hearing that and hearing this. This guy's well-connected. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. What are you hearing? Well, if you're so well-connected, what do you care what I'm hearing? If you've got it right, if you're well-sourced in the matter, then probably that's what you should go report. But you want me to confirm it. Why do you need my confirmation? I guess I should take that as a compliment. Because what you're really saying is that you don't have confidence in your sources. That's what you're saying. Well, this is what I heard. Well, great. Go with what you've heard. It's not what I've heard. And I remember people were like, oh, we've already got people willing to write the check, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And then things didn't go the way they forecasted. Then all of a sudden we start having to kind of crawfish a little bit. Well, we couldn't get a check written. Well, wait a minute. It can't be both ways. Your sources were telling you we had people willing to write a check, and then we couldn't write the check. That makes no sense. Not with the money that we have behind baseball, period. We've got some baseball donors out there that write whatever check we want. We didn't build this cathedral of a baseball stadium and pay for it with food stamps. We didn't. People forget that. a lot of people in those seat licensing agreements, for a few more years here that, are really kind of non-revenue producing customers right now that gave us the money to get started, kind of the pre-sale opportunity to give us some currency to work with. We got ready to build that stadium. We got some cash on hand. So don't sit here and tell me we can't afford to do something when it comes to baseball, because we absolutely can. All right, let's look back at last night's game. Of course, State wins 12-2. And for the first time in a while, State gets off to a decent start here. And I don't mean on the pitching side, which was dominant. No pun intended there. Dominant. But State gets out to an early 2-0 lead, so we're not chasing the game. And how many times this year has it felt like that? We're just out here chasing the game. We get down and we got to scrap up and, tie the game in the middle innings and win it late. But State gets up 2-0. And that was great. I don't care who the competition is. Everything is better when you have a lead. When you're up 2-0, and you got Nate Dohm on the mound, who is emerging as our ace. I wrote that column this morning. You can pitch aggressively. You can really challenge hitters because a solo home run doesn't hurt you. You go right at guys. You don't have to get out there and just kind of nibble. You just challenge hitters. And we found out pretty early these guys from Mount St. Mary's couldn't handle a fastball. And then I go read the commentary from some of our experts, and it's like, well, yeah, we were still relying on the fastball. Guys, if they can't hit the fastball, why would you ever throw a breaking ball? Maybe you knew more about baseball than I do. Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe you do. I know when I coached high school ball, when I found out that a team couldn't handle the fastball, I was going to save some wear and tear on my pitcher's arm, and hopefully in turn save some wear and tear on the bullpen, because my guy can go longer rather than throwing a bunch of breaking balls up there just for practice. I'm just trying to win a baseball game. And so they can't catch up to the fastball. We're going to keep pounding the fastball until they prove they can hit it. And then when they prove that to us, then we'll start introducing maybe a changeup or a breaking ball to keep them off balance. But if they can't hit the fastball, just go at them. And that's what Nate Dohm did. And in the second, third time through the order, he introduced some additional pitches, which is outstanding. 8,633 was a paid attendance. There may have been 600 people there. That 3 p.m. start on a Thursday kind of eliminates a lot of our fans from attending. We know that you were there with us in spirit. We appreciate that. But, Nate Dohm 1-2-3 in the first inning. We mentioned getting up ahead 2-0 early. You get the leadoff walk, and it's amazing. Amani Larry's on-base percentage was already really good. But now that David Mershon has entered the lineup here, Larry is getting on with even greater regularity. Amani gets on, and then he's thrown out stealing. I thought in live time that he was safe. They call him out, they review it, and they say the call stands. Well, they said confirmed. And I didn't see anything on the replay that showed a confirmation. But it's one of those things where it's very difficult to overturn the call in the field without something egregious, right? It just doesn't happen that way. All right, so Larry's out, and you think, we've run ourselves out of the inning. But no, Dave Mershon singles to left field. He's been absolutely outstanding, hitting 500 now. And then Dakota Jordan, great effort here, doubles to left. Dave takes third. Now all of a sudden you got runners at second and third, 2 men in scoring position with less than 2 outs. And Hunter Hines, the much maligned Hunter Hines, and I don't understand it, Hunter Hines singles to the right side and a couple runs score. I ran the numbers earlier today, because we were having a discussion about Hunter Hines over on the genespage.com message board. You guys should come help me in that discussion. Guys, through 10 games last year, do you know what Hunter Hines' batting average was? Do you know? It was 200. He had 3 home runs and 7 RBI. Now, he hadn't hit a home run this year, and people are like, what's wrong with Hunter Hines? I don't know what you mean. What's wrong with Hunter Hines? Well, he hadn't hit a home run yet, Steve. Yeah, he's only hitting 366 with 13 RBI. So he's hitting 166 points higher at this point this year than he was last year. And he has nearly twice as many runs driven in. There's nothing wrong with Hunter Hines. Oh, yeah, well, he hadn't hit the long ball. He's drilled some baseballs. And people are like, he just, he lost some weight, so he didn't have as much power. What you're really doing is telling off on yourself. Guys, it's not home run derby, it's baseball. Now listen, Hunter Hines is going to hit a bunch of home runs this year. But you know what? If he hits 15 and all of a sudden his average is 100 points higher or more and the RBI production is still there, that's a great year. It's an absolutely amazing year. And so I'm very happy to see Hunter Hines come up here in an RBI situation and he gets a solid single to right field that scores 2 runs. And now it's 2-0. And then kind of unlucky here, Bryce Chance absolutely hits one on the screws right to the third baseman. They double up Hines on the play. And yeah, you got to see it through. But I was happy to have a lead here. Right, so 2-0 going to the second. Nate, 1-2-3 again. He gets a ground out and a pair of strikeouts looking. And you could tell pretty early on that, number one, they couldn't catch up to the fastball, and Nate had real command of what he wanted to do. A lot of soft contact in the first inning and some punches there in the second. All right, bottom of second, really nothing doing for State here. Stevens comes up, started yesterday in right field. Nolan Stevens gets a single back up the middle. I thought he hit the baseball well. And this is a guy that missed the fall because he had a hamate bone injury, had to have some surgery. So you don't know as much about him, but that guy's a dude. That guy's a future major leaguer. He's got that kind of potential. If he stays healthy and works hard, he's going to be a name that you know. Big left-handed bat. It makes sense for him to have him in the lineup, especially when they're starting a right-hander. But that's all we get, the one-out single, and we can't do anything with it. And then Nate goes 1-2-3 in the third, a fly out to center, and that ball was pretty well struck, kind of bookended by a couple of strikeouts there. But, guys, Nate faces the minimum through 3. He gets through the Mount St. Mary's order the first time on 29 pitches. You talk about efficiency, that's what you want. And that's one thing that's happened to the Bulldog offense at times, too. People go out there and we don't get a hit the first time through the order. The next thing you know, again, we're chasing the game. Now here we've kind of had a reversal of fortune. We have the early lead, and we have the guy on the mound that is really competing and pushing this thing forward. All right, bottom of third, we get the leadoff walk from Larry. Again, Amani Larry on base again. Mershon flies out to right field, actually hit that ball really, really well. And then Dakota Jordan gets there on a fielder's choice. What's interesting, he hits a hard shot to third. And it was one of those catch it or eat it type deals. So he fields it and he double clutches to second and then throws in the dirt, pulls the shortstop off the bag there at second. So everybody's safe. Well, then Hines walks. That loads the bases. And again, what's wrong with Hunter Hines, right? 2 at-bats here, and he's getting a 2 RBI single, and then he walks on 4 pitches. So back-to-back plate appearances, Hunter Hines is on base. And then Bryce Chance comes up there and flies out to right center. And that was an interesting point in the ballgame that I thought. If you're Mount St. Mary's, it's not just about managing game 1. It's managing the whole weekend. And so right here in this situation, Moore is really struggling. He really struggled to find the strike zone in inning 1. Had a better second inning, but in inning 3, he's not throwing a ton of strikes. And so you got to think, man, it's a 2-0 game. How many of my good bullpen arms do I want to use today to try to stay in this game? It would almost have been a better thing for Mount St. Mary's if Bryce Chance puts this ball in a gap somewhere and allows State to get some separation. There's a reason you see a lot of Sunday games turn into church league softball scores. And it's because of the fact that people run out of pitching. And the reason they run out of pitching a lot of times is because you force them to use good arms to stay in close games on Fridays. Or in this case, Thursday. But Bryce gets out, and then Kohler flies out to left center. So we don't get anything out of it. We load the bases, and we don't get anything out of it. We couldn't get the big hit there. That's the thing. You get the big hit there, you've already got some separation in this game. And lo and behold, it tightens up a little bit here in the fourth. This is, Bulldog fans, rodeo season is here. That's right, the Dixie National Rodeo. Get ready to roll, man. And I remember being a kid, that was like the biggest highlight for us. My grandmother would get us tickets every year. And me and my brother would wear our cowboy outfits. We'd put our boots on, have our chaps, our vest, and we'd go up there. And just in case one of the cowboys got a little bit scared to get on a horse or a bull, we were willing to do it. Yeah, for sure. Guys, boots aren't just for going out to a country western bar and doing a little boot scooting. Maybe you got a little Texas two-step in your game. Tecovas can make you look better than ever. Absolutely. And here's the deal, too. That's the thing, the versatility of Tecovas is you can wear them somewhere nice, or you can live life where you don't go gently. That's what Tecovas does for you. Yeah, it's a rugged, handsome boot. It's my favorite boot brand, and it should be yours too. Be sure and check them out. Tecovas believes in Western for all people, and you can feel that when you go into their stores. When you walk in, you'll be greeted like family, offered a boot shine and a drink, and maybe even an adult beverage if you prefer, and you can get custom fitted for a new pair of Tecovas boots. You can get custom leather stamping or branding, whatever you need to make it feel somewhat individual. Look up your closest store at tecovas.com. But if you can't make it to a store, Tecovas delivers the most premium quality and most comfortable Western goods right to your door. Visit tecovas.com. That's TECOVAS.com. And you know what, partner? Point your toes west. The only inning of Nate Dohm's outing where they get two guys on base in an inning. First thing we do is we hit the leadoff hitter long with a pitch. Landwehr gets a sac bunt down, then Kramer singles back up the middle. The run comes in from second. And then Turney hits a comebacker to Nate, and Nate can't get it clean, takes it off chest. Trainers want to come out. He waves them off, stays in the game. And we end up getting a pass ball, the first one of the year. We had 21 pass balls last year. And a lot of them came in the first half of the year. We had our first one yesterday. And then Stripe reaches on a fielder's choice, and they hit the ball to third, and Logan Kohler decides to go home. We get the guy in a rundown. It was interesting, too. Right as we tagged the runner, Kramer, it's like the Turney decides to turn and run back to second. I don't know what happened there. He got back, but then you get a fly out to seeker. But it was a pretty wild sequence there. And some weird things happen. And again, this is all kind of self-inflicted. You hit a guy, right? Give up the sac bunt, and then there's a ground ball back to you. You kind of mishandled a little bit. And how many times last year when we had weird things happen in a ball game did we lose our composure? We don't here. Nate gets us through this, maintains a lead 2-1. And it really felt like, okay, yeah, this is the second time through the order. But guys, you go back and look here. There's one ball hit out of the infield. And that was a ground ball, kind of a line shot, I guess, back up the middle. But that's it. It wasn't like they're barreling him up. One ball gets out of the infield in the only inning that he had any anxiety at all. All right, bottom of four, state goes 1, 2, 3. Top five. Braxton singles to right field. And next thing you know, Walkley grounds into the 3-6-3. Great job by Hunter Hines here. No hesitation on his part, and it wasn't a 3-6-1 double play. He makes the throw, gets back to the bag. I really want my first baseman taking that throw anyway. And then we get a pop-up of Agar. So again, here we go. Braxton pulls that ball to right field, and then what do you know? We get ground ball and a pop-up. And that tells me the hitters are guessing. They're not barreling things up. It's not a lot of fly balls. That's when you know a guy's on his game. That when he does give up contact, it's relatively soft contact, and that's what Nate did yesterday. All right, bottom of five. Larry lines out, and then Mershon singles to the pitcher. This is an incredible testament to Dave Mershon here. He basically hits a high hopper in between the pitcher and first. And then the pitcher gets it, and he's not going to win that foot race to the bag. It's not going to happen. So Mershon, again, we don't get anything out of that, but I think, again, it shows the dimension that David Mershon brings to this lineup. That even a high chopper to the right side is not a routine play. He's not going to give up on the play. Got a little Jake Mangum in him. He is going to run everything out full speed. Lo and behold, what happens? He could have just given up and just kind of jogged it out, but not David Mershon. That's not how he's built, not how he's coached, not how he's wired. Mershon beats it out. And again, I think that speaks volumes about this team and about him as a player. When you've got a guy like that, giving that kind of effort in a one-run ball game, that ignites a dugout. Everybody gets all fired up because they want to reward the effort. And that's what happened here. And again, we get a couple strikeouts. Jordan and Hines both strike out here. And again, you'd like to keep the inning going. But we take a lead now to the sixth. Nate settles down again. We're just rolling through this. Top of the order goes 1, 2, 3 again. Very efficient inning. The at-bat to Lounware was a little bit elongated, but you get long swinging, and you get Kramer to ground out to short on one pitch. And as I mentioned yesterday in postgame to Chris Simonis, Dylan Cupp makes everything look so easy, you almost take it for granted. And people forget, like, Lane Forsythe is a great young man, and he gave us 2 really good years. Last year, I don't know what happened. I don't know if things were just in his head. But last year, every time a ball was hit to short or third, we held our breath. But Cupp makes it look so easy. Absolutely so easy that you almost just kind of assume anything hit to that side's an out now. And how comforting is that for your pitchers? I roll up a ground ball, I expect an out. I've done my job, now the guy behind me does his. That's good baseball. All right, bottom of 6, State begins to get the much-needed separation here. Like in the past, we'd get down in the ball game, we'd need this inning to kind of get caught up, but instead State's kind of tacking on to a lead here. Bryce Chance doubles down the left field line. Off the bat, you knew it was down. It was just a matter if it's going to be fair or foul. And then Logan Kohler singles through the left side. Chance comes around to score. Then there's Nolan Stevens again, hitting the baseball hard through the right side. Kohler takes third. Now you get runners on the corners. They bring in Connor Hyzak for Stevens, and a lot of people are like, hey, Steve, I don't understand. It's defensive, okay? It's a defensive situation. It is. You got Nolan Stevens out there in right. You begin to get some separation in the ball game. You got to start thinking about, hey, how long do I want to leave this guy out here in right field? He's a guy that could probably play left field for us, just like when Aaron Downs started in center, right? I mean, how long do you want to leave him out there? So Hyzak pinch runs for Stevens, and then he's still second. Wild pitch here, and Kohler scores to make it 4-1. Johnny Long then gets down the sack bunt, moves Hyzak to third, and I saw some people criticizing this automatically. I'm going to defend the coaching staff right here. I think this is exactly the right call. Exactly. Because think about this. There's nobody out in the inning, and we have a runner at second. You get that guy to third with less than 2 outs, he is going to score in a variety of ways. And so here we have a runner at third, and what happens? Dylan Cupp gives me a fly out to center, and then Hyzak tags and scores. So now all of a sudden, we've traded basically 2 outs for the run, but it's a much-needed run. And now all of a sudden, it's a 5-1 ball game. They walk Amani Larry again. Mershon, and I love this kid, man. I do. He's one of my favorite guys on the team. Number one, I love the short game because it puts so much pressure on the defense. And this is a great sight read, and I asked Lamonis in postgame about this. Was this from the bench or is this Mershon on his own? It's absolutely David. The third baseman is, 10 feet behind the bag. You get that ball by the pitcher up the third baseline, there is zero chance that guy's going to throw him out. Now, there are probably a couple third basemen in our league that could make that play, but certainly not at Mount St. Mary's. It's a great read by a great player, and it's also great baseball here because, we've already put, 3 runs on the board in the inning, but you have to keep the pressure on the defense. And so now you got runners at first and third, which enables DJ to come up with 2 men on, 1 in scoring position, against a pitcher that's pretty much on the ropes here and allows you to pitch against him in the stretch. Now, it doesn't work out for us. DJ strikes out swinging. It was not a good at-bat. He takes a couple strikes and then kind of has a give-me-up swing there. I'm not being critical of him. He was confused. Give the pitcher some credit here. McCrary comes in, does a pretty good job here, but I really thought that we were giving him, we were being an irritant with all we were doing. We've got runners in motion, we were bunting, we're doing all kind of crazy stuff here. So we're in his head a little bit. Give him some credit for kind of coming out of the noise there, making 3 pitches when he had to. But the bigger issue here is you're providing opportunities for your run producers because Amani Larry, number one, is a good eye for the baseball, and Dave Mershon is a guy that extremely high baseball IQ. And so we create a run-scoring situation here. And again, even though we put 3 on the board, you can never have too many runs. Disappointed with the strikeout, but very happy to see Amani Larry and Dave Mershon find their way on. Their on-base percentage is absolutely through the roof. All right, top 7. This is your last inning for Nate Dohm. He gives up a one-out single and then gets, what does he do? You got a pair of strikeouts, and you get a pop-up on a bunt right back to Nate. And that's it. So 7 complete for Nate Dohm. Absolutely outstanding effort. We'll recap the numbers here shortly. All right, bottom of 7, they bring in Stam. And kind of, one of those crafty left-handers. He got deep in a couple of counts here, but he gets a 1-2-3 inning. Top of 8, we bring in Tyler Davis. And TD has kind of been Jekyll and Hyde for us. Sometimes he's been really good. He was really good his first couple of outings. But he is a guy, when he's off, he doesn't miss many bats. He opens up with a leadoff walk, and that's the last thing you want. Right? And it's like I think about the whole situation with Nate last week, right? Nate comes out of the ball game after 6 2/3, and we give up a solo shot, right? Black gives up a solo shot. So we've got to be able to kind of get the train running again when Nate comes out of the game. It all worked out okay though. Even this inning, there was definitely some anxiety in the inning. It's a walk, and then Stecco singles, then long singles, and the run scores makes it a 5-2 ball game. He gets Landwehr to strike out swinging. And then Kramer just hits a little comebacker to the mound, and it's like we turned the wrong way here, and we make this awkward throw to first. Hines goes up and grabs it and gets the foot down on the back. I don't know why this call wasn't reversed. We had to challenge, which we thought was silly. They said that it stands. Well, you can see from the 2 camera angles, number one, that the throw and Hines getting his foot down happened well before the runner gets to first. You see from the second angle that he actually got the front corner of the bag. So again, I asked myself, why do we have replay? But nevertheless, things work out because we bring in Brooks Auger, who has been outstanding for Mississippi State. 6 appearances this year, has not allowed a run. He's allowed a couple of inherited runners, but nobody, as Ani pointed out on the Dude Effect last night, he has not allowed a single hitter to go from home to home. That's a great job. 6 pitches, guys, in the inning. He gets Turney to fly out, infield fly, basically. So you get a non-productive out here. Bases are loaded, and you get a pop-up to the shortstop and short left, and then we get a punch-out. Strikeout swinging, and that's what happens when you take the field listening to AC/DC's Shoot for Thrills. That's what happens. You inherit a bases-loaded situation, and you give up nothing because Angus Young said so. So, again, a little bit of anxiety here, but how many times last year will we have imploded right here? We didn't. I think Brooks Auger being back is huge for this program. All right, bottom of 8, Hyzak opens up with a double to center field. Really struck that ball well. Then Johnny Long gets a bunt down, get runners on the corners. How many times have you seen a catcher that could bunt with the proficiency that Johnny Long can? You would think most catchers could because they're used to seeing the ball, right? I mean, they're able to recognize spin, right? Especially when you get a breaking ball early in a count because if the ball's already trending down, you just got to get the bat on the ball here. But Johnny gets the bunt single. It's so great to see a catcher do that. And then Dylan Kopp, the young freshman, works it for a walk. Bases are loaded again here. They like to make a pitching change here. They walk Amani Larry again, forces in a run. They walk Mershawn, forcing a run. Jordan walks, forcing a run. And I don't know that DJ would have taken that walk a week ago. We're being a little more patient to play. Well, that's it for Moore. Max Moore comes in and faces 3 hitters and throws 1 strike and walks in 3 runs. So now we went from being a 5-2 ball game to an 8-2 ball game. They bring in the Salisbury kid. He gets a ground out to short. And that's really the only play you can make there. The run scores makes it 9-2. Then they walk Chance to load the bases again. Kohler with the RBI sac fly makes it a 10-2 ball game. Wild pitch allows Chance to move up to second. And then what do you know? Hyzak doubles to left field and drives in 2 more runs. Now it's a 12-2 ball game. We let Jackson McKenzie get in and hit. He hit the ball pretty well. A 1-0 count, he flies out to center field. All right, top of 9, pretty liberal with our substitutions here. And KK Clark making his Bulldog debut. Very happy for him. I thought it's a great situation, right? You give him, number one, the margin's 10 runs, but you give him a chance to go out there in a really not a leverage situation, just to kind of get some work, right? Kind of open the seal a little bit, but also, too, it allows you to eat up an inning with maybe a guy that you weren't counting on to pitch later in the weekend. I love it. I thought this was, number one, good for the kid and good for us. And so, and unfortunately, we get a foul out to left field, and O'Brien runs this thing down. Great catch, man. Great catch. Gets the first out, and you love to see an outfielder out there really putting out for his pitcher. And then we hit Fleming with a pitch. And I joke with Mike Nee, you've been sitting around for 8 innings getting stiff in the cold, and you get out there, hey Fleming, grab a bat, and you go out there on an 0-1 count and get plunked in the leg. Nevertheless, and then we had a fielding error. Yeah, it's one of those things that happens, right? Last year we had 20 errors through 10 games. We have 8 at this point. And then we get back-to-back strikeout swinging. So, yeah, we had a little anxiety and trepidation there in the ninth, but KK pitched through it, and I thought he was really good. And good to see him out there. Let's look at the numbers real quick here. State wins the ball game 12-2. Nate Dohm credited with his second win. He's had 3 starts this year. We've won all 3. He had a no decision against Air Force. But, yeah, again, you look at this here, 33 at-bats for Mount St. Mary's. They get 6 hits. 6 hits. It's tough to win with 6 hits, especially when the other team has a dozen. 12 hits, 12 runs. Very efficient. Amani Larry goes 0 for 1 last night, but had 4 walks. Can you ask anything more than a leadoff hitter than that? Dave Mershon goes 3 for 4, also has a walk. So, guys, that's 9. 9 times top of the order gets on base. When your 1 and 2 hitters are getting on base, 8 times in a ball game, you're going to score some runs. Dakota scored a couple runs himself, had the RBI on the walk, and Hunter Hines, of course, 3 RBI in the game. And that's what you expect. Bryce Chance hit the ball hard just about every time up and just has 1 hit to show for it. And we hit some Adam balls last night. There were some other balls in some of those shorter innings that we actually barreled up and just happened to hit it right at him. Logan Coulter 1 for 4 with a couple of RBIs himself. Nolan Stevens 2 for 3 in his first Bulldog start. Connor Hyzak gets in, and Chris Simonis jokes after the game, hey, Connor, you're a victim of your own success. You play better when I don't start you. And the kid's like, no, I want to start. But 2 hits and 2 plate appearances and scores a couple runs, drives in a couple runs. Those numbers will work. Johnny Long 1 for 3 with that bunt single. But, yeah, really, really pleased with our patience at the plate and our ability to get the big hit when we could. Tommy Moore tagged with the loss. He goes 4 innings pitch, allows 4 hits and 2 runs, 3 walks, a couple strikeouts. Had a tough outing last week against the Richmond Spiders, too. Again, Nate Dohm credited with the win. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 run. It's earned. 8 strikeouts, no walks. Had the 1 hit by pitch that, of course, opened the inning the one time they scored. Think about that for a second. If we don't hit that guy, it's probably a different conversation. Tyler Davis, again, not great. 1/3 of an inning, allows 2 hits, a run, gets a walk and a strikeout. And, of course, the error there that probably shouldn't have happened. Brooks Auger, again, 2/3 of an inning on 6 pitches. So he's good. He'll be able to pitch tomorrow if we need him. And then KK Clark goes an inning, no hits, no runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts, did have the 1 hit by pitch. Pretty excited about KK Clark. And again, he's a freshman this year, so we're getting to kind of work through this thing. And, we'll see how things go. Cal Steven, of course, is going to be your starter tomorrow. I expect a bounce-back performance from him. I really do. I think this is a situation where, last week, maybe we're being too competitive, but he just couldn't hit his spots last week. The week before, he was probably better than I've seen him through the fall and the early spring. And then on last Saturday, I think that he was a guy that's probably among the worst I've seen him. He did have 1 outing in the spring where he got hit a little bit, but it was kind of like that, a single here, That's just kind of how things go. Now, looking at, pitching matchups for tomorrow, we expect to see a pair of lefties. And I think, until we prove we can hit them, that's what we're going to see. And everybody wants left-handed pitchers. That's just kind of how it all works, right? Everybody wants them because there's not as many of those guys. But, we're going to see some lefties. Now, that's Kyle Spias and Brendan Yegish. Yegish is expected to go in Game 1 tomorrow and Spias in Game 2. Now, they're 2 of their better pitchers. Batting average against for Spias is 188. Batting average for Yegish is 200. Now, you look at the quality competition they played and say, well, I don't know. As I told you guys on Wednesday's show, this is a by-committee approach. Both of these guys are averaging right at 4 innings per start. And some of that's got to do with being early in the year, but I don't look for these guys to work deep in ball games. I don't. Spias is a guy that has also worked some in relief, but they'll just kind of piece this thing together. And that's the thing you start thinking about having to play 2 tomorrow. You'd like to be able to get some extension and save your bullpen arms, and State is in really good shape for the bullpen for the doubleheader tomorrow. But again, expect to see a couple left-handers, and looking at their numbers, kind of what last night's game meant to them. We talked about kind of where they were. Landwehr now down at 261. Tyler Long still kind of where he was at 324. But this is a team that's really not much of an offensive threat. And of the teams that we played so far, this is the worst one. There's not any question about it. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on, too, and I made this comment on Gene's page. I know we're running a little bit long here in our first segment. But, everybody talks about, well, LSU's going to come in here and kill us. And you know what? They might. They might. But one of the things that I want to point out is there's a lot of people out there that they're always like, well, there's quality competition. We haven't played anybody. Have you looked at LSU? I mean, have you looked to see who they've played? I don't know that you have. And I bring that up because I think it's important to understand there's not a lot of teams that play a lot of competition. LSU will play Texas here in just a little bit. I'm eager to watch that game. LSU's non-conference schedule is worse than ours. They've only played one team with a winning record, and that's Central Arkansas. And they're 5-4. Stony Brook's the best team they've played. They got a losing record. They've been to Omaha one time. And so this is kind of what happens. Unless you get invited to one of these early season tournaments, nobody's going to play any big-time non-conference competition. It just didn't work out that way. I mean, we had Oregon come in here a few years ago. We had Long Beach State come in, and Long Beach State hadn't been what they have been. But by and large, and especially when you look at our roster and our lack of experience, we needed a non-conference schedule that kind of said itself it was time to win. Now, we're probably a couple games behind where we should be. Let's just kind of call it for what it is. I mean, you blow that Saturday game against Air Force, and then you blow the Wednesday game against Austin Peay. And I don't know if you've checked the numbers. Austin Peay 8-1 right now. But you run through all this and you begin to realize, too, that, hey, our best and or worst baseball lays ahead of us. We're going to be judged on how we play in SEC play. You start working through this stuff and you begin to kind of realize that, hey, we got a couple weeks of baseball left before we get into SEC play. And some of the guys right now that are pitching that are having difficulty throwing strikes, those are guys you're not going to see in SEC weekends. You may see them midweek, but it's not like with a game on the line we're going to go out there with a guy that hadn't been able to get it done. It's just not how things work. But, good win last night. I thought it was a good team win for State. We'd like to see us play a little bit cleaner defensively, clean up a couple of errors there, but I thought we were patient at the plate, and we swung the bats better last night than we have at any point this year. So, again, we come back on Monday. We'll recap the doubleheader. And, yes, I expect State to take both games. I'll be disappointed if we don't. All right, time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's CLOSE with Blair, BLAIR.com. Blair is a mortgage professional. If you have mortgage needs, and maybe you don't realize you do, maybe you've thought, you know what, it's just not for me, Steve. I'd love to buy a house or a condo or whatever, double-wide trailer. I don't know your needs. But you may just kind of say, you know what, Steve, I'm just kind of a renter. I'm just a renter. I'm never going to have anything. Well, yeah, I tell you what, Blair is probably better equipped to help you become a homeowner than anybody else. A lot of people make that claim. Blair's got 23 years of experience and back-to-back-to-back top 1% close ratios in the country. Nobody stays in any industry for 20-plus years by accident. It's true. So Blair's my friend, your friend. He's our collective friend in the mortgage industry. So maybe you're thinking about a game day condo. Maybe you're thinking about buying a house for the first time. Let me encourage you. Rather than just kind of shooting in the dark here hoping to get lucky, give Blair a call or text today. 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. We've had several Boneyard listeners that have closed loans with Blair. Many of them under some difficult circumstances. And that's why it pays to have a professional right? Because you know what happens is like, well, we got to buy a house. What do we do? What do we do? Rather than depend on somebody else, let's go ahead and call Blair, get pre-qualified. So you don't save your real estate agent's time. You don't waste your own time. And then you're out looking at homes in your price range. Things that you know that you can get closed without really putting yourself in a negative situation. It shouldn't be that difficult. So it's good to have somebody to hold your hand through a very complicated process. Again, that's Blair Chandler at closetheblair.com. All right, today's top 10 list got somebody hit us up on the request line. I won't mention the name. I said, hey, Steve, I love the Steve Lukather list. And I did too. It was a lot of fun. And matter of fact, our play baller DC came back and said, hey, Steve, appreciate the shout out. Well, I appreciate the idea. Had somebody else hit me up and said, hey, I love those old radio rock bands, those rock radio groups. Foreigner, Toto, Journey. Love all those early 80s bands, really before it got to be metal. Kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. Said, Steve, I didn't really like the glam scene. I did. But said, it brings back my high school years to hear these bands. And said, I was a huge Journey fan. And I love Steve Perry's solo stuff too. Do you think maybe we could do a Steve Perry non-Journey list? You've come to the right place. Because yes, we can do that. Because I also too am a Steve Perry fan. Now, I did not include Don't Fight It. That's been on the show a couple times already, and I shared that with my kids today. I said, hey, this was really popular. You know the guy from Footloose that sang Footloose? Yeah. You know the guy that sang, Don't Stop Believing? Yeah. Well, they did a song together. Back in 82, there was a huge hit called Don't Fight It. And it was really before their careers really took off. Of course, Kenny Loggins had some hits with Loggins and Messina, and of course, Journey had a few hits, but things are really about to happen. And that song, I think, two greats kind of getting together and delivering us a great track. So that's not on our list today, but I wanted to give a thumbs up. Anytime we can share that song, it's a great thing. So here is some Steve Perry solo hits, your top 10. Steve Perry was once called The Voice by John Bon Jovi. And what a great compliment that is. John Bon Jovi, of course, the guy that sang the soundtrack of our youth. Giving a shout out to Steve Perry. And I read some of these lists and it goes, oh, well, Rolling Stone said Steve Perry's a 78th top singer of all time. I reject that list on principle. Steve Perry, one of the best pure vocalists of my lifetime of the rock and roll side. I mean, and just go listen to what he does on Faithfully, right? I mean, it's just amazing. But here we go. Steve Perry's solo tracks ranked 10 through 1. From the Greatest Hits album, and this is one of those bonus tracks. They did a Greatest Hits album, and he released some songs, some new singles, so it wasn't just a regurgitation of the old stuff. It's When You're in Love for the First Time off the Greatest Hits album. Really like that one, and you can tell Steve, he's kind of getting to the end of his musical career. His voice is pretty much shot now. Really through no fault of his own. Number 9 from the album Traces, We're Still Here. And that's a song really about longevity in a relationship. We've been through this and been through that, but we're still together. And how many times in life can you say that? I mean, a lot of times, let's be honest about it. There are a lot of people, the first sign of adversity, they run from you. And a lot of times people are just scared to commit, but there are other people too that just aren't worth the effort. It's true. I always say that, the key to marriage is a handful. Number 1, find somebody you can be faithful to, right? Number 2, find somebody that makes you a better person, makes you aspire to be better than you are today. Something my dad told me years ago. People always say, well, we're getting divorced because so-and-so changed. It's not that they changed. It's they failed to change. You have to change when you have to consider another person's life. You do. But more importantly, too, it's about finding that person that through the ups and downs can put up with your nonsense. And listen, if you're an abuser, all bets are off. But you know what I mean? I mean, just the human condition sometimes requires us to be a little bit difficult, right? You got to have somebody that's willing to hang in there with you. And I think that's what We're Still Here is really about. Great track. And maybe one you don't know. Number 8, also from the Traces album. And there is an acoustic version of this album, and then there is like the rock radio version. And really, the rock radio version is really more adult contemporary. It's a little more tuned down. There's not, the big Neil Schon guitar solos and things like that. But it's a track called No Erasing. I think you'll really like that one too. That's the thing you think about your memories and things like that. I mean, it's like, how it is, you break up with somebody and it's like they're dead to you or whatever. But you can't really erase the impact they have on your life, even if it's a person that teaches you what you don't want, right? That's almost as beneficial as learning what you want in life, as learning what you don't want in life. All right, number 7, going back to Street Talk, which was the debut solo album for Steve Perry. We got 3 tracks from that album on this list, and it's She's Mine. Great, great, great relationship song, very relatable. It's one of those things, too. There's so many things you go through in life, right? But it's so great to have somebody that you can claim as yours. And not really ownership of that person, but partnership with that person. This person is going to be with me. They're going to work alongside with me. We're going to have shared dreams and goals and things of that nature. And so that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel. All right, number 6. Great comeback album for Steve Perry, For the Love of Strange Medicine. I absolutely loved it. I love the long hair too, Steve. He had the mullet like during the Journey peak years. And then he comes back in the 90s with this great album. And he's got this flowing mane. And I'm like, you know what? Hey, good for you, Steve. Big, big fan of that. Great track, though, called Missing You from The Love of Strange Medicine. That's your number 6 track today. All right, from the Greatest Hits album, it's number 5, I Stand Alone. Absolutely dig this one, too. And again, it's nice to kind of get some of these rarities out. There's a lot of bands out there I wish would do that. It's like, well, it's unfinished. Yeah, well, you're not going to finish it. Just put it out here for us. Let us enjoy it and think about what might have been. But I Stand Alone's a great one. Number 4, in a song that has been featured on American Idol more than once, it's Foolish Heart. And a lot of people know this one, and a lot of people think it's a Journey song because Steve sings it. But no, it comes from the Street Talk album. From the Greatest Hits album, and I think arguably the best song later in the Steve Perry catalog. It's Once in a Lifetime Girl. It's got a little more of an edge than some of the other things do on that Greatest Hits album that you're maybe unfamiliar with. But again, a great relationship, relatable song. And I trust that you find that once-in-a-lifetime person. Number 2, the first single off For the Love of Strange Medicine. And I love the intro on this. I think this is Steve Perry really at his best. I really do. I couldn't put this number 1 because there is an obvious number 1, I think, in all of our minds. But this is that song. When he came back, it was like, oh my gosh, Steve Perry is back. It sounded so great. It was just like quintessential Journey with a little more of an edge. But it's got a great intro in the beginning. And there's this little piece there where it's kind of a cappella in many respects. And you hear the purity in Steve Perry's voice. But it's You Better Wait. Love that song. Absolutely love it. But number 1, you guys know what it is before I say it. And they didn't stick together, but it's Oh Sherry. Because our share, Oh Sherry, our love holds on. It turns out it didn't. They ultimately did get divorced. But an interesting story about Steve Perry that I'll share with you that I read years ago. Steve Perry had gone to one of these Blackbird camps, or Bluebird camps. I can't remember what it's called. My friend Bo Myrick, that played at Mississippi State, went to one of them too and actually met his wife Joan there. Pretty incredible. And we did lose Bo several years ago, and it still saddens me. And I got to know Bo after he left Mississippi State, and a few years back was able to share some stories with his daughter that looks exactly like him. And Dana and I got to know Bo and Joan really good when we all lived in Hattiesburg. And man, I loved Bo Myrick. I absolutely did. And this got me thinking about all that today. Thinking about Steve Perry going to this cancer thing. When Steve Perry had cancer, he goes to this camp. And it was kind of like a situation with Bo and Joan. Bo obviously at that point thought he didn't have much time to live. And he meets Joan, they fall in love, and then he goes into remission. They end up having several years together. And ultimately we did lose Bo. And so if you guys remember him playing tight end at Mississippi State, an amazing guy. An amazing guy. Really was. And what's interesting, too, is like after he left Mississippi State, he, got into like being, bodyguard and being like a bouncer and that sort of stuff. And I want to say that he was in the Stone Cold Steve Austin movie. I can't remember the name of it. He's been in a couple movies like as an extra and things like that. Big foreboding figure like Bo. And he actually, believe it or not, was one time married to the Penthouse Pet of the Year. True story. And then she ended up marrying Vinny Pazienza, the boxer. And Bo and Vinny actually had a good relationship. And that's probably more than you signed on to hear today. But anyway, so you have this camp, and again, I can't remember if it's Blackbird or Bluebird camp, but it's a support camp for people that have terminal cancer. And Steve Perry went to this camp. And he met this lady and fell in love with her. And, of course, she was terminal. And next thing you know, he marries her and moves her into his house and loves her until the end and paid for all of her medical expenses and things like that so she could have some quality of life in her final days. And if that doesn't tell you the kind of person that Steve Perry is, I don't know what does. This guy's a mega superstar in rock music, and then here's a lady that he loves and one of the loves of his life. And he did all he could to comfort her. And so, for that reason, not just beyond Steve Perry's amazing talent, but the fact that the character of this person and then the joy of his heart, that he was able to give so much of himself to someone else that he knew was a short-term relationship, but he wanted her to have some happiness before she passed away. I think that speaks volumes about the kind of person that Steve Perry is. So forget about all the tabloid stuff and all the arguments with Journey over the years about rights and royalties and things like that. But this is a situation here where Steve Perry could pretty much date anybody he wanted to. And he followed his heart and then gave it to this woman that he knew would die prematurely and still loved her until the day she died. It's an amazing story. You can find it online, I'm sure, but pretty special stuff. And I like to be able to support people like that whenever we can. So happy to do the list. And again, we got this and said, hey, I don't need my name mentioned. That's cool too. But we do appreciate the suggestion. And I think it's been a good run. Like if you're an 80s rock fan, maybe not an 80s metal fan, if you're an 80s rock fan, I think it's been a good week for you. So if you have ideas for a top 10 list, reach out and let us know. Best way to do that is to hit up Roy Samanti, my friend, on Twitter at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC 67. Yeah. And you can find our great list also on Spotify on that same handle. You can send them to me on social media. I'll do my best. I don't always see my notifications. That's not a humble brag. I'm just trying to explain. If I don't get back to you, I may not have seen it. I get busy, as you guys know, but I never would dish you purposely, for sure. But thanks, as always, for your support of the Top 10 list. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. If you don't know Campus Bookmart well, then shame on you, right? And I've got some Campus Bookmart employees coming to float with us. Yeah. Keeping it the fam, right? But we're just supporting each other, man. I love Campus Bookmart. The people that run that place, man, are like family to me. I hadn't been in there in a while. I need to get in there. Even if it's not to buy anything. I mean, I always end up buying something because there's always something that catches my eye. And you will too, right? If you're looking for Mississippi State merchandise, don't force the issue. Go somewhere that's going to have exactly what you want and things that you're going to love. Whether you're decorating your home, your game day condo, or outfitting your wardrobe, buying something for your pet, your office, or a gift. Great housewarming gifts there too. It's not just an apparel shop. A lot of places out there sell Mississippi State t-shirts. Kathy Brown keeps that place outfitted with all kind of wonderful Mississippi State merchandise. If you can't make it to town to see their smiling faces, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That's BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. All right. I hate talking about this kind of stuff, but our stretch of discontent with women's basketball continues. And we've now lost 5 games in a row. And mentioned on Wednesday that I thought we would have our hands full at Auburn, and we did. And it's just one of those things. I wish we could snap out of it. Something has to change. We've got to start doing something different. We had won 5 games in a row. We ascended to second place in the Southeastern Conference. We've blown all that. We're still projected to make the tournament as one of the last 4 in. We probably need to win a game in the SEC tournament now. You got Missouri coming in for Senior Day, but hey, this was not a good one. We're 20-10 overall and 7-8 in the Southeastern Conference. Auburn 18-10 and 7-8 in the conference, but Johnny Harris gets a measure of revenge against Mississippi State. It's ironic though, the guy that didn't hire is now her boss at Auburn. But all that understood, guys, we didn't win a single quarter in this game, not a single one. We're down 7 after 1, down 9 after 2, still 9 after 3. And then in the fourth quarter, again, we just run out of juice. And this has become a consistent theme with us here as of late. In the fourth quarter, we just don't have enough depth. And outscored by 8 1/4, we ended up losing 77-60. It was closing time at Auburn, and we didn't answer last call. Jessica Carter leads the way for the Bulldogs with 16 points, 6 of 16 from the field. Got to get a better percentage there. 4 of 7 from the line, 7 rebounds. Also had 4 personal fouls, 3 turnovers. Jerkayla Jordan, double-double for her, 10 rebounds, 12 points, 28 minutes of action. State was abysmal from the three-point line, 4 of 16. Jerkayla 0 for 5. Darian Rogers is kind of her thing. She connects on 3 of 6 from beyond the arc. Accounts for all 9 of her points. Debresha Poe, just 5 points for her. And that's the thing, when we start looking at these numbers, we've got to have a consistent third scorer, and we just didn't have it. Erin Barnum, 31 minutes, just 8 points for her. We were pretty good at the free throw line, 18 of 23. The men should take note. But we pulled down 43 rebounds, so we actually out-rebound Auburn. But it's so crazy to look at the fact that they had 18 offensive rebounds. 18. That's a ton of second-chance opportunities for them. We get 12 second-chance points. Auburn gets 19. They get 15 on the break. We get 4. We get 11 off the bench. They get 23. So in many respects, they beat us in every aspect of the game. They even beat us on points in the paint, 30-28. Points off turnovers, 25 for them, 7 for us. You turn the ball over, you give up offensive rebounding, you're going to get beat, especially on the SEC road, and Bulldogs do. Not at all what we expected to be. Really felt like we were playing our best basketball. We were in the first part of February. We haven't been down the stretch and now into the month of March. This is when it matters, and we're not getting it done. Let's just kind of call it for what it is. Now, I'm a big Sam Purcell fan. I saw some commentary on social media last night that he didn't do the post-game radio interview with Jason Crowder after the game. I'm not a fan of that. I think win or lose, you got to go out there and face some music. I understand. You want to get back and talk to your team. I get it. But not a fan of that. And I don't know what happened. Maybe send me to go to the restroom. Who knows? But the reality of it is that is something that is expected, and I think it's something within our program. You've got to be able to go out there and answer questions and deal with that. A lot of people want to hear from you, good, bad, or indifferent. Not in any way am I soured on Sam Purcell. Just not a big fan of that decision. And again, I don't know all the details behind it, and maybe when he got to postgame he explained. But the reality of it is that guys, we're not playing well. We're really not playing well, and that's one of the things you look at and you begin to ask yourself, is this season going to live up to expectations? Well, it's ultimately going to be judged what we do in the tournament, assuming we make it. We got Missouri on Sunday, senior day. Need a good crowd for that. You don't have baseball, right? So you can come on out. That's going to be the only game in town, 2 p.m. And some of these ladies playing their last ball games ever at Mississippi State. We hope, because we don't want to be in the NIT. They're going to need your support. And we're in a situation now where the standings don't even matter. They just don't. We got to go win this game and snap the losing streak, and then we'll see where we're seated and go figure it out from there. But not good. Not good. And you start looking around the league here, the traffic has cleared, and we have been left behind. We are in the rearview mirror. We're still right there in the middle of the pack. But I think in many respects, we kind of see this as a season with unfulfilled expectations, especially here as of late. But, Sam's got to figure it out. Very talented guy, guy that loves women's basketball, and we hope that they will. Of course, Missouri's 2-13 in the conference and 11-17 overall. They've lost 10 games in a row. We have to win that game, period. Have to win that game. And again, what else happens around the conference really doesn't matter. We're jockeying for position here. We're going to play pretty early in the tournament. And we'll look forward to the tournament. We got to win some games. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have to win some games. Probably got to win this weekend and maybe win a game in a tournament just to feel good about being in the tournament. We can't go to the tournament and go 0-1. Can't do it. Can't do it. That you can't leave it in the hands of the committee. You got to remove all doubt here for sure. All right, on the men's side of things, big ball game tomorrow. Statement type game, quad one opportunity on the road in a very hostile environment. We got to go to Auburn and play down there. And we beat them earlier this year, 86-82, a game that we didn't expect to play well. Excuse me, 64-58. Excuse me, I was reading the wrong line. We won that ball game, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect us to really be able to compete. Now, we were at home, and we made them play our style of basketball. I suspect they're going to want to get out and run a little bit. But offensively, we are a much different team than we were back then. And again, we have last few ball games have scored 80-plus points per game. But looking at Auburn here, and it's hard to believe we got 3 games left in the regular season. 3. Next week, of course, we're at A&M in the midweek and then host South Carolina for Senior Day. And again, a lot of Bulldogs will be moving on at season's end. But since we have played Auburn, it's been kind of a mixed bag, I guess you could say at times. This is a very, very talented Tiger team. And if we go out there and get down early, it could be a difficult day. But the way that we have played, regardless of circumstance and regardless of competition, I expect us to show up and compete tomorrow. Auburn's now 21-7, 10-5 in the conference. And just kind of getting caught up. I know a lot of times we don't pay attention to our peers until we get ready to play them, right? I think we all kind of see it that way. But since we have played Auburn way back on January 27th, they drilled Vanderbilt. They drilled Ole Miss in Oxford. They drilled Alabama. Really got going after that. And the next thing you know, they head to Florida and just really didn't show up and got beat by 16 by a good Florida team, but not a great team. Then South Carolina rolls into Auburn, and everybody's all excited about South Carolina. But, hey, it's a big marquee win here. If South Carolina can go into Auburn and beat a top 10 ranked Auburn team, hey, you got a chance. Or maybe top 15 at the time. Auburn beat them by 40. 40. And then they get over the hump, and you start thinking, okay, things are great. And then Kentucky goes in there and gets them by 11. Kentucky goes to Auburn and beats them. And I think that's probably really kind of the angst with this Auburn team. Is just every time they get a win and then they get an opportunity for another quality win against a team that is ranked ahead of them or around them, they haven't had the ability to come through there. They lose Wednesday in Knoxville to Tennessee. No shame there. This Tennessee team is outstanding. Also a team that Mississippi State has beat. And you begin to wonder now, yes, Auburn will be at home, but when you begin to think about, hey, the Tigers are not going to be where they hope to be. And I think the Tennessee win kind of solidifies that. So it's I guess 3 p.m., is that right? 3 p.m.? 3 p.m. tip according to the Auburn website. It's going to be on ESPN2 and ESPNU. We'd encourage you, if you're in the area, to go. But kind of looking at where things stand right now on the men's side of things. Despite the fact we lost to Kentucky, we're still right there in the thick of things. Everybody sees it. Everybody feels it. We're still, a little bit angsty over that loss. But when you begin to think about this thing with Auburn now, Auburn not officially out of the race to win the SEC, but losing to Tennessee in many respects makes it that much more difficult, right? You got 3 games left. You're 2 games back. And you're going to need Tennessee to help you a little bit, or Alabama. Tennessee and Alabama are tied at 12-3 in the league. And then South Carolina, 11-4. They're going to be here next weekend. Then there's Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, all bunched up together at 10-5. And then just behind them, Mississippi State. We're 2 games behind those guys. As you start thinking about seeding for the SEC tournament, we're in a situation now where we got 3 games left to play. And we got to find a way to win a couple. And that's the thing I began to think about. Are we capable of beating Auburn? Yes. Do I expect it tomorrow? No. Auburn's 13-1 at home. And we hadn't been a great road team. We looked great last weekend against LSU. I expect us to come out and compete, but I'll be surprised if we win. And again, I would have been surprised if we beat them at home, and we did. I'd love to be wrong about this. I'm really thinking next week is our week. I think we're capable of winning at A&M, and I think we all see it. When we went to Columbia, South Carolina to open the SEC slate, we gave that game away. We did. And I think we'd love to have them back. And I think, again, that's a way to kind of cap the regular season. You finish up with 2 wins late. A road win against A&M that's 6-9 in the conference. They're 15-13. We should be favored in that game. And then, of course, South Carolina coming here. I think it's a great way for us to end the slate with a team that we probably should have beaten. I think we all felt the way at the time. I think we feel that way now. They're going to be playing for something. They're trying to stay in the SEC race. They're a game out of first place. So Lamont Paris and those guys are, what kind of feeling do they have when they get here, right? So that's important to understand too. But I like our chances next week, not so much on Saturday. We'll be pulling for the Bulldogs, always. But it's going to take a great effort for us to go out there and win that game tomorrow. And so I won't be disappointed if we lose. I will be disappointed if we get blown out. But no matter what happens tomorrow, we still have, I think, 2 winnable games to close out the season. Of course, a win over South Carolina would be huge. They're 23-5 overall. But again, I like the matchup. We got to do a better job with Michi. But I think that we have an opportunity to get both games next week. That's how I feel. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. If you're unfamiliar with the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, and shame on you, just Google Stark Vegas Clubhouse and familiarize yourself with the amenities of that great facility. It's an amazing place. Tucked away, just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. You don't have a lot of neighbors. Not that we want you throwing a rager out there, but it's quiet. You got some privacy. It's the renovated clubhouse at the old country club. Very easy to find, very conveniently located. So whether you're bringing a work group to town, and I had some friends do that a few weeks back, or maybe you're bringing your family in for a ball game weekend, or maybe you're saying, you know what, Steve, we're going to just take a few days off work, and we're going to go to men's basketball, we're going to go to baseball, we're going to be around for all this stuff. We're just going to make it a Mississippi State week, and we're going to spend some time in Starkville because every time we come, it's game day, and our favorite restaurants are packed. It's tough to get in and out and shop, and maybe you just want to come enjoy Starkville during a week. So maybe take a bit of a mini vacation. Let the Stark Vegas Clubhouse put you up. Now, when you Google them, their Facebook page is going to come up. You're going to see all these great pictures of the amenities. I love that back porch area. I could sit out there and just kind of watch the sunset and just kind of enjoy nature. There's that great fire pit out there. There's a lot of reasons just to go relax, right? And it's just good to have everybody together. So rather than go rent 5 hotel rooms, whether it's a work crew or a family crew, wouldn't it be great to have everybody under one roof? And Grandma can make those cinnamon rolls that next morning for breakfast and have some orange juice. It just sounds amazing. I may go to Walmart after this, go get some orange juice and cinnamon rolls myself, make them for myself tomorrow. But look no further than the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Now, when you Google, you're going to have the option to book through Airbnb, VRBO. If you want to do that, great. However, if you book through the Evolve website, I can save you some money. Yeah, promo code BSR10 gets you 10% off your stay through the Evolve website. Familiarize yourself. You'll be glad you did. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay when you're bringing a large group to Starkville. All right, let's take a look at the baseball weekend in our last few minutes, and we'll get ready to get out of here. But SEC weekend, it's going to be good. I think we all see it kind of for what it is. Nobody's playing great competition right now, with rare exception. And again, I'm ready to get out here and watch LSU in Texas. I don't know how you see it. I like watching those games. I do. Now, we got underway last night, of course, February 29th. We were the only team in action last night, but you back up to Wednesday. Ole Miss took care of Missouri State. Vanderbilt beat Evansville, who will be our guest next weekend. Michigan State went in there and pounded Georgia 19-6. Florida knocks off Bethune-Cookman 9-2, and LSU gets Rice 16-4. And one of the things that I pointed out on Gene's page, Match Report, you're right, LSU hadn't played anybody either. They're ranked number 3 in the country. We got to be up. They may come in here and skull drag us. They may. But they haven't played anybody. They will tonight. They certainly will tonight with Texas. All right, so a few games already final as everybody tried to kind of get ahead of the weather today. Kentucky 7-4 winners over Lipscomb. Lipscomb picked to win the Atlantic Sun. So this is a solid mid-major win for Kentucky. Arkansas gets Murray State 5-1, the Racers. Tennessee 11-1 winners over Bowling Green. Vanderbilt in the 8th now leads UL Lafayette 6-3. Georgia Tech and Georgia are tied at 1. Northern Kentucky up on Missouri in the 1st. We expect that score to change, 3-0 now. Indiana, number 20th ranked Indiana, at number 16 Alabama. Indiana with an early lead there, 3-0. Florida, 1-0 over Miami. Arizona State and A&M is in delay. And then Clemson and South Carolina has been postponed. There'll be a doubleheader tomorrow. Iowa is at Ole Miss. That'll be awfully interesting. And I'm being nice when I say that. I think Iowa pitching may be a little bit too much for Ole Miss. But, in that ballpark, Ole Miss is really good at home. So we'll see how things go. And then at 7 p.m. tonight on the Longhorn Network, it's Texas at LSU. Eager to see that top 15 matchup. UConn's at Auburn. That's been postponed till tomorrow. Be a doubleheader tomorrow. So full day. And, of course, Vanderbilt's down there at a little tournament. They'll take on Houston. And pretty much everybody else is, I guess, A&M against USC. But everybody else pretty much what you'd expect. Arizona's against Alabama. Louisiana plays LSU. So it's always nice to have these interconference round-robin type deals where everybody gets to play a quality opponent. But this weekend will be interesting. I think when you begin to kind of look around, I don't know that we know much about any of these teams just yet, unless you're losing a lot, Missouri is easily the worst team in the conference from a talent standpoint. Keurig Jackson, I think, will get them going. And then State and Ole Miss right there at 6-4. State needs to win both of these games this weekend. I think Ole Miss has their hands full. And again, I still think Arkansas is going to win this thing. I really do. A lot of people are like, oh, well, LSU, when you get them out of their ballpark, a different club. And Alabama's 9-0. A lot of people are like, hey, you know what? They're rolling. And you look at the non-conference schedule, it hadn't been very good. This is a real test for them this weekend. But you look at numbers, and everything is really gaudy right now, and a lot of it's because none of these teams collectively have played anybody. It's true. So we're not going to have a really good sense of who any of these teams are until about 3 weeks into the conference season. And that starts for us here in a couple weeks. But I'm excited to get back at the ballpark tomorrow again. Noon start for the doubleheader. So please come out, check us out, be a part of that. Many of you already have plans to be in Starkville this weekend. You're going to have Sunday free. Rather than hustle back home, come float with us over at True Rest of Starkville. You'll be glad you did. I don't have to sell you anything. That's got to get you in the pod once, and it kind of sells itself. You're going to feel like I did. If you hadn't done so, go to whenthebottomfalls.com, and you can order When the Bottom Falls, my newest book, to go along with all my sports titles. That's Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, and Dogpile. All available there. So When the Bottom Falls obviously is a memoir about my journey to recovery and how I've been able to stay clean and sober 32 years. But it's not just a book about that, right? It's not a depressive book, even there's some there's some dark times that are illustrated in that book, but also it's the worst of times and the best of times. So I'd encourage you to read that, whether you just need something to read that maybe is a bit inspirational, or maybe you know somebody that is struggling with chemical dependency, or a person that's in recovery that maybe needs some encouragement. That's really what it's about, is sharing some experience, strength, and hope. And so that's the reason I wrote that book. And of course, I'm already working on the Duty Noble book. As a matter of fact, we'll do some editing tonight. Then on Sunday, we'll write chapter 4. I'm trying to basically do a chapter a week and kind of get this thing done by the end of May. So we've got the month of June to kind of finish the book out, finish all of our fact-checking and editing, then we'll push it off to be print. Hopefully, we'll have it out for you by late August, early September. That's the plan. Things always change, but I'm excited about the book. Of course, we've already released the cover, but I am now in possession of Duty Noble's college transcript. And did you think about that for a second, right? Did you ever think that'd be possible? Yeah, it's true. I have that, so we'll add some details, to chapter 2 based off that. But it's pretty remarkable, and I get messages regularly from people, and especially people from the Noble family, that have thanked me for my interest in this. And as Mitzi Banks Steele has said, it means so much to them that it means so much to me. And I'll just tell you, every book that I've written, I fallen in love with. I have. When I wrote Flim Flam, of course, it was my first one, so there's always a little anxiety. I mean, am I capable of doing this, right? I mean, I know how to write. I know how to write an article. I know how to write a good story, but, was I capable of writing a book? And, of course, it worked out really well. Changed my life, right? And but this one's different. This one's a lot different. Like I have such respect for Mississippi State athletics, and not just where we are today, but where we've come from. And I think it's important, while I have the platform, to be able to tell those great stories before they're gone. Now, many of these Dudy Noble stories are dead and gone. And so we're kind of having to piece things together at times. This cousin knows this, and this neighbor knew this. And there's a lot of things out there. And you can gather some things, some old newspaper clippings and things like that. I heard today from Boo Ferris's daughter, and I'm going to include some things from Boo in the book. All of that stuff is an important part of the Mississippi State experience. But I submit to you, there may never be a more influential person in Mississippi State athletics history than Dudy Noble. I mean, there's a reason we named the baseball stadium after him. And many of you probably wonder why. Why did we do that? And that's what really the purpose of the book is. To kind of highlight his accomplishments and his contributions to Mississippi State. Of course, he joined Mississippi A&M College as a young teenager and came here to be a farmer and ended up being the most decorated student athlete in the history of the great Mississippi State. And it has been my honor to gather this information for you. And every time I write one of these chapters, I share it, obviously, with the wife first, because I don't want to look like an idiot when I submit this stuff to my agent and publisher. But I wrote chapter 3, and I felt really good about it. And it's one of those chapters, too, like you write some things, but it really explains where the nickname Dudy Noble came from. Because he was just Randolph until he came to Mississippi State. And so as I'm writing that, it just means so much to me to know how important it is for all of you to know that part of Mississippi State history. I take this stuff very seriously. And I don't think that you can take it too seriously. But it has been my honor to work on this book. And I think, I say this every time, it's the most important book I've ever written. I think this is one of those ones, right? I think this is a book, every one of them has been different. And they've all had a different meaning to me. But maybe it's because this is the one I'm working on now. This is an important book for me. It's an important book for Mississippi State. It's an important book for you. Because it's going to illustrate the life and times of a guy that a lot of people don't know a lot about. They know the name. They don't know the man. They don't know his history. And they really don't know what all he accomplished in the way that he fought for Mississippi State. And there are some anecdotal stories that I'll be able to pass along in the book. They're going to make you awfully proud. And you're going to look at the name Dudy Noble in a different light. It's not just going to be the name of our baseball stadium. You're going to understand that our baseball stadium was named after him, and the honor was really all of ours. And the more that I learn about Dudy Noble, the more respect that I have. And one of the things that I've learned, though, I thought, why aren't there noble people everywhere, right? Why aren't there noble people just all over our fan base? And the truth of the matter is, the family's really not very big, despite the fact that Dudy Noble was one of 9 children. There's not a lot of descendants from William Alexander Noble, which is Dudy's father. There were a lot of kids, but not a lot of grandkids or great nephews and nieces and things of that nature. It's not a really big family. But they all deeply love Mississippi State. And so it's one of those things that I pray about a lot, that God will give me the strength and the wisdom and the words to illustrate this story in a way that it means something to all of you, but also that I truly honor the legacy of Dudy Noble. And one of the reasons you write, too, is to educate yourself, right? When you go and tackle these historical topics, it's not just about you. It's not just me gathering a bunch of facts and just kind of stringing it all together and say, okay, here's the story. I want to know. And I joke about this all the time. I had a friend of mine, like every time I would learn something, I'd call him and say, hey, you can't believe this story. You can't believe this. This is incredible. And he goes, Steve, you probably know more about Dudy Noble than anybody alive. And I said, yeah, and I think my wife probably knows the second most about it, and she's tired of hearing about it. But no, it's truthfully, it is a book that has really, really, really kind of gripped me in many respects because I understand the value of this book in our fan base's history. Very, very important to me because you're the people that I want to make proud. You're the people that I care about, And so I share that with you because it's important to understand that when it's our turn, we can do what everybody else has done, and that does little to distinguish us. It doesn't matter if you're a writer or you're a carpenter or you're a manager of a retail outfit, I don't know. But you have to do something special with your life, and that is a decision. Yeah, I'm a firm believer is, if all you do is prove you belong here, then you probably don't belong here. You know what I'm saying? I think it's important for us to stand out and do amazing things with our lives. I'm not going to sit here and preach to you or pass around an offering plate. We're not going to have an altar call or anything like that. But your messages to me about this book have meant an awful lot. And a lot of people have shared their messages about When the Bottom Falls, about how it inspired them. I think chapter 19 may be the best thing I've ever written. And of course, you don't need to skip ahead to chapter 19 because in order to understand 19, you got to read every chapter before that. But I've had people from all over the country that have reached out about the Duty Noble book. I mean, people that have said, hey, my grandfather played for Duty Noble. I can't wait for this book. And other people reach out and said, hey, my grandfather worked for Duty Noble, or my grandparents went to church with Elizabeth Noble. And we're eagerly awaiting this book. And I would say since probably Flim Flam, this may be the most eagerly awaited book I've worked on, including Dogpile. Everybody was excited about Dogpile, but you already knew how that book ended, right? You'd already seen the end of the story. This is a completely different dynamic, completely different. And so I'm working hard on it. Again, I'm going to finish chapter 2, just kind of doing some editing because I've gotten some new details that only fit in that chapter. And so I'm going to get that finished up tonight after the LSU-Texas game, and then we're going to get to work on Sunday, roughing out chapter 4. I'll keep you guys updated. But it's very, very special to me, and I hope it's very special to you. But for those of you that have messaged me to offer your tips and your moments and messages of encouragement, thank you very much. If you need Stark Villains gear, go to starkvillains.com. You do need them. You do need it. You should. It's a cool-looking logo on an incredible piece of fabric. Get T-shirts and hoodies there. And come join us over at jeanspage.com. Now 30% off the annual subscription rate. Be sure and check in with us. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends and enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.